My name is Alara. I am 35 years old, and after raising my sons alone for 15 years, they told me their mother's new husband was a better father. I can still remember the silence that filled the room. It wasn't just words. It was a blade pressed against every scar I carried from late nights, from skipped meals, from bills that I barely paid. I stood there, feeling the weight of 15 years of sacrifice collapse into dust. "If you're watching this," I whispered into the camera later that night, my voice trembling but steady enough, "drop a comment. Hit like and subscribe, because maybe my story will show you how betrayal looks when it wears your child's face." They thought they were giving me news casually, as if it were normal to dismiss the woman who carried them through storms. "We've signed the papers," my oldest said. His smile didn't tremble. My youngest, his brother, added, "It feels right. He's been more of a dad anyway." I wanted to scream. Instead, I looked at their faces, familiar yet suddenly distant, and realized something neither of them had bothered to learn. Adoption has consequences. The law doesn't just replace a signature on paper. It rewrites bloodlines, rights, and inheritances. And while they stood tall in that moment, believing they had chosen love, I quietly thought about everything that decision had erased. They believed they had gained a new father. They didn't know what they had lost. The air in the house grew heavy. My hands shook as I poured myself water, each drop echoing louder than their words. My silence scared them more than if I had yelled, because silence meant calculation. I walked into my room, shut the door softly, and thought to myself, this wasn't an ending. It was the start of something they would never forget. I thought I had seen the worst. But then, the letter arrived. The letter was resting in my mailbox, crisp and heavy, like it had been waiting for me. My fingers trembled as I slid it open. Inside was a copy of the adoption decree. Stamped, signed, finalized. It felt like betrayal. Had found paper and ink to mock me. I sank into the couch, the sound of my breath louder than the ticking clock on the wall. 15 years of sleepless nights, scraped knees, unpaid utility bills, and lonely birthdays, reduced to a line that declared me no longer their parent in the eyes of the law. My mind drifted back to their childhood. I remembered selling my grandmother's bracelet to pay for my oldest son's asthma treatment. I remembered walking through snow at 4 a.m. to get medicine for the younger one, because fever doesn't wait for dawn. I remembered birthdays where the cake was small, but my love filled the room. Now they were calling another man Dad. I forced myself to read the decree again, this time slower, and then I noticed it. The legal clause. With adoption, they had effectively severed their rights to any claim from me. It wasn't just emotional. It was financial, legal, binding. They thought they were punishing me with distance. They didn't realize they had erased their path to everything I had built. In that moment, pain turned to something colder, a quiet resolve. If they had chosen to cut me off, I would honor their choice. Fully. I had spent years saving, investing in silence, building more than they ever knew. And now, all of it was legally mine to protect, free of obligation. That evening, I sat across from my sister, the only loyal voice in my family. She worked long shifts as a nurse, exhausted but kind. When I showed her the papers, her eyes widened. "Alara, do you realize what this means?" I nodded. For the first time in years, a strange calm settled over me. My sons had slammed the doors shut themselves. I didn't need to push. But deep down, I knew. The real storm hadn't even started. The next week blurred into gray. Every time my phone buzzed, I hoped it was one of them. Some apology, some second thought. But each notification was just a bill reminder, an advertisement, or worse, photos from social media. There they were. My sons, grinning beside their mother and her new husband. Arms around each other, matching shirts. Fake laughter turned into captions about family finally whole again. I stared at those pictures until my eyes burned. Did they forget the nights they cried in my arms because she didn't call? Did they forget who sat by their hospital beds when no one else came? Did they forget I was the one who taught them to ride bikes, to tie ties, to believe in themselves? I began noticing how people in town looked at me differently. Neighbors whispered. A cashier gave me a soft, pitiful smile as if I were some discarded relic. Their betrayal wasn't just private anymore, it was public. My humiliation was a headline written in their happy faces. One night, I pulled out an old box from the closet. Inside were photographs, birthdays, first days of school, graduations. In every picture, I was there. Their mother was a shadow, sometimes missing entirely. I ran my finger across each photo, whispering to myself, I raised you, I carried you, and you forgot. But memory can be more powerful than love. That same night, my loyal sister came by after her shift. Her uniform still smelled of antiseptic. She saw the photos spread across the table and sat beside me quietly. Alara, she said, don't fight for people who chose to leave. Protect yourself now. Her words sank deep. For years, I had fought for them, against poverty, against loneliness, against abandonment. And now, I was done fighting for what didn't want me. Instead, I would prepare. Not for them, for myself, for the life they had walked away from. I closed the box gently, slid it back under the bed, and whispered, they think they've found a new father. They have no idea what they've lost with me. I sat at the kitchen table with the decree, spread before me like a blueprint. For years, I had lived paycheck to paycheck, hiding small savings in quiet places, retirement accounts, a growing investment portfolio, even a modest property I bought under my name alone. My sons never knew the extent of it. I'd always imagined it would be theirs someday. But now, the law had changed the script. By accepting adoption, they had stepped away from more than just my name. They had stepped away from every dollar, every brick, every seed I had sown. I made an appointment with a lawyer downtown, a sharp woman who didn't waste words. She glanced through the papers, nodded, and tapped the final clause. They can't claim inheritance from you anymore. You are no longer legally bound. Whatever you choose to do with your estate, it's yours, completely. Her words hit like lightning. For so long, I had carried the weight of their futures on my back. Now, suddenly, I was free of it. My sons thought they had traded up, a shinier house, a man with easier money, but they had signed away the very security they once mocked me for not having. That night, I sat with my sister again. She poured us tea, her tired eyes searching mine. So, what will you do? I leaned back in my chair. I'll honor their choice. If they don't want me, then they don't get me. Not my time, not my love, and certainly not my legacy, she smiled sadly. You've always been stronger than you know. The next day, I began drafting a new will. Line by line, I redirected everything. The accounts, the property, the investments. My sister, who had stood by me when no one else did, would be the one to receive what I left behind. And as the ink dried on that paper, I felt a calm I hadn't known in years. My sons thought they had secured a better father. What they had actually done was secure a future without me. But destiny has a way of circling back. And soon, they would learn just how costly their choice had been. Weeks passed in silence. My sons didn't call, they didn't visit. Instead, photos kept appearing online, smiling at dinners, vacations with their mother and her new husband, captions about finally having stability. At first, each post was a knife, but then something shifted. The more they paraded their new life, the less it hurt. Because behind the smiles, I noticed what others didn't. The unease in their eyes, the way their shoulders stiffened, the laughter that looked rehearsed. One evening, my sister rushed into my house after work, still in her scrubs. Alara, she said breathlessly, did you hear? Their stepfather's business is in trouble. Debt, lawsuits. It's all over town. I froze. Suddenly the puzzle pieces clicked. My sons hadn't just signed away their rights to me. They had tied themselves to a sinking ship. By chasing the illusion of a better father, they had walked straight into uncertainty. I wanted to feel pity, but all I felt was clarity. That weekend, I attended a community event at the local hall. I didn't expect to see them there, but I did. They avoided my eyes at first, but whispers spread quickly. People knew what they had done. Adoption papers aren't secrets in a town this small, and now, with their stepfather's troubles public, sympathy was no longer theirs. I watched as neighbors who once congratulated them kept their distance. A woman leaned toward me quietly and said, "You were always the strong one, Alara. Everyone saw it. When my sons finally approached me, their smiles were gone. "Mom," the younger one muttered, the word almost hesitant. "Can we talk?" I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time in years, I felt no ache in my chest. Just steel. "You made your choice," I said softly. Their faces fell. They had expected tears, maybe anger. But my calm unsettled them, because they knew, when silence answers betrayal, something deeper is already in motion. Turned and walked away, leaving them standing in the noise of a world that was beginning to turn its bow. The first headline appeared on a Monday morning. Local contractor faces bankruptcy amid fraud allegations. It was him, their new father, the man they had chosen over me. His smiling photo sat on the front page, the same face my sons had proudly paraded as their real dad. By Wednesday, the story had grown darker. More lawsuits, unpaid debts, workers demanding wages. His empire wasn't just crumbling, it was being stripped brick by brick in public. And my sons were right there beside him, carrying his name, his shadow. I watched it unfold from a distance, sipping tea on my porch. Neighbors shook their heads as they passed, whispering about how quickly fortunes can turn. For once, the whispers weren't about me. At the grocery store, I overheard two women at the checkout. Those poor boys. They left their mother for this? They abandoned the one who raised them. Now look, their voices weren't cruel. They were honest. And hearing them, I felt a strange calmness. Like justice was being handed out without me lifting a finger. That weekend, I saw them again. Their shoulders were slumped, their clothes less polished. The confidence that once dripped from every word was gone. They walked toward me slowly, like children again, but not mine anymore. "Mom," my oldest said, his voice thin. We didn't know this would happen." I met his eyes, and for a moment, I remembered the boy who clung to me during thunderstorms. But then I remembered his smile when he told me I'd been replaced. "You chose him," I replied softly. "And choices have weight." My younger son's lips quivered. "We thought we were gaining a father." I exhaled, steady and cold. "No, you were losing one." I walked away again, my silence louder than any lecture. They had expected me to save them, to step back into the role they had discarded, but the law, their decision, and my heart all said the same thing. This time, there was no return. And yet, deep down, I knew the final blow hadn't even landed. By the time autumn rolled in, their new father's downfall was no longer gossip. It was spectacle. The bankruptcy hearings filled the courthouse, reporters scribbling every sordid detail. Fraud, evictions, assets seized. His empire wasn't just collapsing, it was disintegrating in full view of the town. And my sons? They were dragged right into the wreckage. With adoption, his debts became their inheritance too. The name they had chosen carried not only his pride, but his ruin. One afternoon, I passed by the courthouse steps. Cameras flashed. Their mother stood there, makeup streaked, shouting at reporters that none of this was her fault. Beside her, my sons kept their heads down, faces pale as if wishing to vanish. For a moment, I almost didn't recognize them. The arrogance, the dismissal, the coldness they once showed me, all gone. Replaced by shame, neighbors began to cross the street when they saw them. Friends who once laughed with them stopped answering calls. Betrayal has a way of echoing back. And now they were the ones abandoned. That evening, they showed up at my door. Their knock was timid, hesitant, not the bold pounding of boys who once felt superior. I opened the door slowly. They stood there, exhausted, clothes wrinkled, eyes rimmed red. "Mom," my younger one whispered, "we need help." I studied their faces. For years, I would have rushed to embrace them, to save them, but not anymore. My silence lingered, long enough to make them squirm. Finally, I said, "Help? You signed that away." Their mouths fell open, as if hearing it aloud for the first time. The legal choice they had made in arrogance was now the chain dragging them under. I closed the door without another word. Behind it, my heart pounded, not with regret, but with release. For the first time in 15 years, I wasn't the desperate mother begging for love. I was the woman who had survived betrayal and learned to let go. But I knew one thing. The final reckoning was still waiting. The reckoning arrived in a plain white envelope. It was my will. Updated, notarized, sealed. For weeks I had worked, with my lawyer, ensuring every line was airtight. My estate, my savings, the property I had protected all these years. Every part of it was now directed elsewhere. To my loyal sister, who had stood beside me through every storm. To a local foundation for children abandoned by parents, because I knew that pain too well, and absolutely nothing for the sons who had erased me. When word spread, they came storming into my driveway. Their faces were flushed, their voices loud. "How could you do this to us?" my oldest demanded. "We're your children." I stood calm, hands folded. "No," I said softly. "By law, by choice, you aren't. You wanted a new father, you got one. You wanted to erase me. You succeeded." Their mouths moved, but no words came out. For the first time, they realized the full weight of their decision. Adoption had felt like freedom when they signed the papers. But now, it was a lock sealing them outside my life forever. I didn't gloat. I didn't shout. I simply turned and walked back into my house, leaving them behind, on the steps where they had once played as children. That night, I brewed myself tea and sat quietly by the window. For years I had begged for their love. Now I didn't need it. They had freed me, even if they never meant to. And in that freedom, I found peace. I whispered to myself, almost like a prayer. They thought they replaced me. But in truth, they released me. If you've ever faced betrayal, share your story in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, because sometimes silence becomes the loudest revenge. The legacy was mine to keep.